Hello everyone, welcome to GS Core. So in our series of current affairs through MCQ, we see the multiple choice questions based on today's current affairs. We not only look at the questions and their solutions, but also essentially the skills, approach and the concepts which are underlying them. And through this, we tend to decipher the technique to score maximum, right? So today's questions are based on these following current affairs. Carbon dating. Prime Minister was in Dwarka and there has been debate about the carbon dating there, right? The Panchveshwar project between India and Nepal. Some recent developments on this. The National Hydrogen Mission, right? The green hydrogen facilities have been inaugurated recently. The TRIMS agreement, right? So just like you have the TRIMS, you also have TRIPS, etc. The issue of fiscal federalism. So all these have been in news specifically today. So let us quickly get on to the very first question. So as you can see, the news I was talking about, recently Prime Minister went to Dwarka in Gujarat, right? And he did a dive, which are supposed to be the remains of the now submerged city of Dwarka. While PM visits all over the country as part of his responsibilities and various programs, it is essential to note that the dating of this city has remained in speculation. And as I always say, that there might be a focus of the news, but there are also a locus from which the questions can be made. So therefore, through this approach, we have tried to make this question based on the dating techniques. So now if we look at the skills, approach and concepts, so all of these that you see here are the datings. So the details of dating methods is at the center of it. If we look at the skill that is needed, it is essentially retention. And since this is a match the following kind of a question, correlation and identification. If we look at the approach, through these skills, we have to approach only the set of statements and the respective methods to see if they are correctly matched. Why? Because you see the structure, it's vague. It's how many instead of which. So it gets tad bit difficult for us to actually use the method of elimination or some other. So if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. So let us look at the various techniques. Radiocarbon dating by measuring concentration of C14 isotope. I guess this is school level stuff. So this is correct. Dendrochronology, studying the dendritic structure of the organic matter, right? No, it is the tree ring. When you cut a cross section, right, it is the tree ring. So it involves studying the growth of trees, and a new growth ring is added every year. So that is clearly not the case here. Third, thermoluminescence, measuring the amount of light emitted by material on heating, indicating amount of trapped electrons in crystalline structure. This correctly describes the thermoluminescence method. Next, fission track dating, measuring the amount of decay product of thorium in a given material to determine its age. Right? If you look at this, this is wrong that thorium is used. Instead, the technique is right, but uranium is used here. 238, uranium 238. So this makes it incorrect. So there is a high probability that this is the trap. So the details are very important. Otherwise, you will end up marking this also correct. So if we see out of the 4, 2 are correct. Hence, the option to mark for us would be option B. Option B. Similarly, there are various things. For example, if I look at inflation, regarding inflation, terms like deflation, stagflation, right? All these terminologies are in news. So they can also be asked in the match the following manner. They can also be asked in the match the following manner. Sorry. Let us quickly get on to the next question. And it is based on India-Nepal Panchveshwar project. Recently, the Indian and Nepalese officials met, right, and a consensus is still not emerging for the Panchveshwar multi-purpose project. Now, with regards to current affairs like this, the concepts, when you look at the bilateral relationships, you need to break it down: convergence and divergence. And for each of these, you need to see the issues. With regards to issues, the details. For example, with regards to this, especially for prelims, location, purpose, stakeholders, as in which agency is implementing it, right? Percentage share, revenue, impact, all those things are essential. When it comes to skills, approach for such a question, the skills which are needed is not only the recall skill that you need to recall where things are, but also the deduction skills, because often the statements are implied. Statements are implied, right? So the approach should be fact plus using the deduction skill. So fact would come from recall and using the deduction skill to identify the correctness or incorrectness of the statement. So each statement should be examined. Now, if you look at the format is traditional. It's a 2-statement question, right? So whenever there is this kind of a question, the format is such, elimination can be used. At least if not to arrive at the completely correct answer, but to zero down on possible options. Also, the keyword is very important because it is asking correct. In places it can be incorrect. It is a multi-purpose project. So let us read the question. It is a multi-purpose project being constructed on the Nepal side of Mahakali River. You see, the location is very important. It is not covered under integrated Mahakali River treaty between India and Nepal. So you see the issues of convergence and divergence. Okay, the treaties, the mechanisms which are being established. So if you look at this, statement, this statement is the first statement and the second statement. Both are incorrect. Both are incorrect. Okay. In this case, it is not only on the Nepalese side but also on the Indian side, right? And it is very much covered under the Mahakali Treaty signed between India and Nepal. So both the statements are incorrect. Hence, the option to mark for us would be option D. Similarly, between India and Bhutan, India and Myanmar, India and Bangladesh, India and Sri Lanka, India and Maldives, all the close neighbors, there would be certain projects, either infrastructure, right, or mobility related, that would be there. So keep an eye on these things as India voices and echoes the concerns of global south and is trying to emerge as a leader. These things, the bilateral projects, the developmental initiatives will continue to be in news and continue to be important for the examination. Now, let us move to the third question. Consider the following statements regarding the power generation methods using hydrogen. So, if you recall, recently the green hydrogen facility was inaugurated, right? Also, the news which brought this issue to the fore is that the National Hydrogen Mission, right, is looking at the hydrogen economy, and the first indigenous green hydrogen fuel cell ferry in Tamil Nadu was recently launched, right. So, let us look at the approach and skills. The concept, of course, is the green hydrogen, what benefits it gives, what challenges it has, the mechanisms, and where is India. So, this is the backbone. Now, here the conceptual clarity is important. What is green hydrogen? Okay. So, clear clarity as well as the recall skills are needed. The interrelation is minimal because largely the things are going to be factual. Okay. So, the approach that we should take for such questions is that always refer the concept and the news, and then we should go about it. If you look at the format is how many? Again, vague. Okay. So, it is very important to zero down because elimination won't work here. Let us read the questions first. Fuel cell are viable method of generating power using hydrogen, where hydrogen reacts with oxygen to produce electricity, heat and water. This is correct. Direct burning of hydrogen can produce nitrous oxide as a minor product from exhaust, right, at high temperatures. Yes, it can happen. Blending of hydrogen with conventional fuels such as natural gas in power generation processes can reduce carbon emissions and enhance efficiency. That is correct. Hydrogen and the natural gas, right. This process is known as hydrogen blending, right, and is an important thing towards decarbonization. If you recall, another thing which is in news is the ethanol blending, right. So, a similar question can be asked on these lines as well. Also, the lithium ion batteries, again very, very important. So, if you look at this particular question, all the three statements are correct. Therefore, the option to mark would be option C. Option C. Moving further for the next question. So, this question first of all is in the statement 1 explains statement 2 kind of a format. TRIMS, right. If you look at TRIMS agreement is back between India and South Africa, has blocked a major investment deal at the WTO. Okay. So, TRIMS stands for Trade Related Investment Measures, TRIMS. So, often with regards to questions like these concepts, for example, the postulates of agreements, parties, mechanisms, issues, challenges, they are important. The approach and the skill that is needed for this particular question is not only knowing the facts or the recall or what we say as retention, but also the interrelation and deduction. without which you cannot answer such questions, because it is not only asking which of them are correct. If one happens to be correct, one happens to be incorrect, then still you can arrive at an answer. But what if they are related and both are correct, or both are correct but not related? Okay. So therefore, in such a situation, the interrelation and deduction skills are important. Okay. If you see the TRIPS agreement, like I said, it can be TRIPS, it can be another free trade agreement, right? Another movement agreement of logistics, etc. that can be in question as well, apart from this. So let us read the statements first. TRIPS are regulations and policies imposed by governments that directly or indirectly affect foreign investment, including measures that limit market access, such as local content requirements or trade balancing requirements. That is correct. That is correct. The enforcement of TRIPS falls under the jurisdiction of WTO, specifically under the Agreement on Trade Related Investment Measures. That is also correct. That is also correct. So both are correct. So either we have A or B as the answer. So idea of TRIPS, therefore I said merely knowing it is not enough, you should have the analysis and deduction. Because you see, the idea of TRIPS is to promote fair competition, right? Fair competition vis-a-vis international trade and investment. And TRIPS is an essential part of WTO framework, that there is no discrimination against foreign investors or impedes trades unnecessarily. And hence, if we see in this particular case, both the statements are very logically related. Remember the logical correlation skills. Okay. So in this case, our answer will be option A. Option A. Moving towards the next and the last question. Fiscal federalism. Fiscal federalism. You see, different state governments are agitating in New Delhi regarding the adherence to fiscal federalism. You see, fiscal federalism is at the core. So the concept is at the core of the center state relation. So the center state financial relations, these are the concept. The skills which are needed is the application skill and the interlinking. Because why? Application, because there would be an underlying concept using which, and the contemporary development, the current affairs. Okay. Interrelating these two, you will come at a conclusion. So the third will be deduction. So while approaching such questions, always look at the fact plus plus, that means fact and beyond. Things like fiscal federalism is in news, similarly cooperative federalism, competitive federalism, these things can also be in the news. Even combative federalism, right? So these things can be there in the news. Now, if you see the format, again it's a vague format. How many? So you cannot use elimination. You simply cannot use it. So we'll have to look at every statement at its own merit. The union government has been consistently sharing an increasing share of its proceeds from the gross tax revenue with states as mandated by the successive finance commission. Okay. If you see now regarding this, the 14th and the 15th finance commission, it was 42 and it is 41 at the moment. So it is decreasing. It is decreasing. So this statement becomes incorrect. This statement becomes incorrect. Second statement, right? We are not talking about the money in absolute terms. We are talking about as per the finance commission. So that should be kept in mind. The introduction of the goods and services tax in 2017 led to a reduction in the number of cesses and surcharges imposed by the union government. No. New cesses were introduced, surcharges were introduced, and many old ones continue to remain outside the GST system. So this statement is also incorrect. This statement is also incorrect, right? Next, the net divisible pool consists of the gross tax revenue after deducting cesses, surcharges and cost of tax collection. That is true. That is true. Okay, and therefore we say that the center is not transferring as much money to the states. So if you look at all the three statements, they were highly application oriented and analytical. Nowhere the concept standalone was asked. Okay, but the implied, the application, the deduction were needed. So out of the three statements, only first is correct. Hence the option to mark for us correctly would be option A. Option A. So that completes today's series of MCQs from today's current affairs. You can find more current affairs in our daily current affairs compilation called ThinkQ, the link for which will be provided in the description. So that's all. Thank you.